it's white to move. Black's king looks safe on g8. White has pressure, but at first glance, black still has enough pieces around the king. The queen is active, the bishops are watching key squares, the rook is ready to come into the attack. Most players would continue with a normal attacking move, maybe trying to win back material slowly. But Gusev finds something much stronger. At first, the idea looks impossible because white is about to give up his queen. But the real problem is not the queen. The real problem is black's king has no safe defenders and white's pieces are perfectly placed to attack. Keep this position in mind. We'll come back to it in a few minutes. Now, let's go back to move 1 and see how this attack was built. Hello everyone, welcome back to Queen Sacrifice Legends, episode 27. I am Aniket, an Arena International Master. Today's game is Yuri Gusev from 1946. This is a Soviet era attacking game from the Sicilian Dragon, and it is a perfect example of how a queen sacrifice does not appear from nowhere. It was prepared by space, open lines, active pieces, and an exposed king. The game is famous because white sacrifices heavily, including the queen, and still keeps the attack alive. If you enjoy classical attacking games and queen sacrifices, subscribe. Now let's start from move 1. The game begins with a Sicilian defense. White plays e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d6, d4. White opts for an open Sicilian, so cd4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6. So black goes for the dragon setup. Basic idea is simple. Black fianchettos the bishop on g7 and puts pressure on the long diagonal. White develops normally with bishop e2 and castle kingside. So after bishop e2, knight c6, knight b3, simply declining the trade, bishop g7, castle, bishop e6. f4, striking in the center and preparing pawn f5, and now there's a rook c8. We already see the story of the game. White wants kingside space and an attack. Black wants pressure on the c file and an active play with the pieces. Then white plays f5. This is already a very ambitious move. White is not just developing anymore. White is trying to push black's pieces backwards and gain space near the king. Black retreats and played bishop d7. Now white plays g4. This is aggressive. White wants to push the kingside pawns forward and disturb black's knight. Objectively, this is not great. This is even risky and computer is not agreeing with this pawn g4 idea. However, in practical attacking chess, one thing matters. Can you attack faster than your opponent can organize counterplay? And remember one more thing, your opponent is a human, not a computer. Black now plays knight e5. He simply found a hole and put the knight there, and we can call it an outpost as well. Which is not a great idea because now white can continue with this attack and play g5, attacking the knight, and now knight has to go back, so knight g8. So notice what has happened. Black developed the knight on f6 and now it is back on g8. Black has gained space, black's pieces are becoming passive, and that is the first sign that this attack may become very dangerous. White continues with knight e5, putting his own knight in the center. Now black should continue the game with e takes f5. And after e takes f5, he has to play pawn h6, challenging these strong pawns on the king side. And he is absolutely fine. But unfortunately, after knight d5, he also made a mistake and played pawn f6. He was also trying to challenge the kingside pawns, but this is not the right idea because now white can simply ignore everything and develop his bishop on e3. And again, this is the time he should play f takes g5 and don't care about the pawn on a7. But unfortunately, he made another mistake and played b6. And white again got an advantage. Black is thinking about the pawns, not about his king, which is very bad. And then white plays a strong centralizing move and he played knight d4 because now these squares becomes weak and he wants to take an advantage of it. This knight move improves the position and brings more control over key squares. Black plays king f7. He said, I don't want your knight to sit on e6. That already tells us something. Black is uncomfortable. King does not want to stay on the king side, but it also does not want to have a clean escape. And when the king is sitting in front of rook, it has to be uncomfortable. White plays pawn c3, and now he's freeing up the queen on this b3, which will put lots of pressure on the king. Black plays queen e8. And now in this position, queen b3 is a top move recommended by the computer because that was his whole idea and it will open so many threats. But he tried knight e6, and that is a mistake because he has a better option available. But as a human, this move looks very dangerous because the knight sitting on e6 in the opponent's territory looks a great piece. And black should not touch this knight and try to hold. But he played bishop takes e6, f takes e6 check, and now king f8. He said, okay, sure, your pawn sitting on e6 now. Yes, black's pieces looks cramped, but white does not have anything to keep attacking. This is what black thinks. But now we reach the first important attacking movement. Let's pause the video here. It's white to move. White has a pawn on e6, very close to promotion ideas. Black's king is on f8. Black's pieces look awkward, but white still needs a forcing move to continue. Find the move that keeps the attack alive. Most players would probably play a normal move or try to slowly increase pressure, but Gusev plays knight takes f6, simply sacrificing his knight. And computer does not agree to this move, but white is still winning. This is not the queen sacrifice yet. This is the first sacrifice that opens the rook. Point is simple. White removes a key defender and clears the way for g-pawn and bishop to become powerful. Black captures with knight takes f6, white recaptures with g-pawn, and black recaptures with his bishop. At first, black looks absolutely fine. Black has just captured a material and the position has simplified a little. But now comes the real point. White plays bishop at 6 check, the only move which gives white an edge. Black's king moves on g8, and now white has another sacrifice and he plays rook takes on f6. White removes the bishop on f6. And now black has to accept it, otherwise he lost a bishop and he's gonna lose a game. So e takes f6. Now look at the position. White is down material. White's rook is gone, but black's king is exposed. Black's dark squares are weak and white's queen is ready to enter. And now white plays queen takes d6, which is not a great idea. Best move in this position was queen d5, preparing a discover attack. But white played queen takes d6. Now the queen is active, but black has a chance to come back in the game. And he played the best move, which is rook c6, attacking the queen. And now you can see the evaluation bar. The computer was saying queen takes d6 is not great, and then he suggested rook c6 is the best move. Still, after that, he realized that queen takes d6 is also winning. So now you can see, game is that deep, sometimes the computer is not able to understand. If you are serious about improving and want structured training instead of just solving random puzzles, I work with students personally. The link to train with me is in the description. Now we reach the main position. Let's pause the video here. It's white to play. Most players would move the queen away. That is a normal human reaction. When your queen is attacked, you save it. But in this position, Gusev understands something deeper. The queen is not the most important piece in this position. Black's king is, and white plays queen takes on e5, sacrificing the third piece in the same game. A stunning move. White allows black to take the queen. Now black has to accept it, so f takes on e5, so white has sacrificed the queen. At first, this looks completely insane. White has already sacrificed material, and now the queen is gone too. But the point is, black's king is still unsafe. and white's remaining pieces are active enough to continue the attack. White plays rook f1, and now his point is if at any point of time this queen moves, then rook f8 will simply finish the game with checkmate. This is a key follow up. The rook enters the open file and attacks the king's position. Black plays rook c8 and preparing queen takes on e6. And now white found a great resource and played bishop d1. He said, if you take on e6, I'm gonna move my bishop on b3, which wins the queen. And of course, you don't want to lose the queen. And here, he should play rook c7, probably rook g7, give up a rook here, and hope for best. But unfortunately, he did not find the right idea and played rook c4. He decided to give up this rook for this bishop because the white's light bishop is very strong. So bishop b3 attacking on the rook, black plays b5. He said, I have a queen. If you want to take my rook, be my guest. So white captures, bishop takes c4, b takes c4, and unfortunately, that was a blunder. He should continue the game with a4, challenging a pawn on b5 and then eventually capture the rook. But he played bishop takes c4, b takes c4, and white is still not lost. The game is still draw as per computer, not as per humans. And for humans, the game has become very sharp. And if black queens take on a6, it's simple checkmate on f8. And see the best part. Black is having 5 extra points of material, and believe me, there's no way for black to activate the rook, so the game is actually draw. So now white's plan is to keep pushing the pawns and generate a counterplay. So b3, and here he should take and continue the game, but black played pawn a5, which is a blunder, and white is back in the game now. So b takes c4, queen e7, again keeping an eye on f8 at the same time. White calmly improves the king, so king g2, and now with the queen a3, threatening to take on a2 with check and have his pawn as a passed pawn. So rook f2, simply protecting the pawn, and of course black queen cannot go anywhere else apart from the same diagonal because he has to keep an eye on f8. So queen a7, and now there's a rook f1. White said, okay, let me see what your plan is before I reveal my plan. So black plays pawn g5 because he has to play some move. And now white plays rook f5 because now he weakens the pawn on g5 and he wants to take it. This is very strong. The rook becomes active on the 5th rank and attacks the e5 pawn and the king's defenses. So black pushes pawn g4, and now white said, okay, nothing is happening. I have a pawn on e6 which you can't touch, and my bishop and rook is keeping your queen stay on the same diagonals. So let me keep pushing the pawns. So pawn c5, and now this pawn cannot be captured because of rook g5, simple checkmate with the help of pawn and the bishop as well. So queen d8, hoping to do something, but now there's simple pawn c6. Now queen e7, going back, and now there's a c7. At this point, black simply resigned the game. White wins because the threat is simply too strong. C pawn is about to promote, black's king is still weak, and white's pieces are fully coordinated. If he moves the queen back on e8, controlling the c8 square, he lost because of rook g5 check, and now he has to block with the queen, and now there's a c8 queen. So that is why in this position the queen on c5 become overload because he has to keep an eye on g5, keep an eye on f8 and c8 at the same time, which is simply too much for the queen, and queen cannot handle all the stuff. So the queen sacrifice worked because white did not need the queen to finish the attack. White had a bishop, rook, passed pawn and active kingside pressure. Black had material but no coordination. So that was Gusev from 1946. Gusev gave up massive material including the queen, but in return he got open lines, active pieces, a dangerous passed pawn and an exposed black king. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe for the next queen sacrifice legend and comment below, would you have saved queen or would you have found the queen sacrifice? I will see you in the next one.